first order. That's a beautiful thing. Nice to see you, Hodiah. Can't believe I was at your bliss here. I wrote a new tune for you actually, but I'll play it for you later. So I thought we'd do a couple of songs that we could sing together. It's always been a dream of mine to open up for my brother, finally. We're usually never actually in the same town, let alone the same building when one of us is gigging. It's sort of this funny thing. Good time, hang out. In fact, hold on. Hold on.
You might have something to play with.
Play the shaker? Alright, ask your mommy. Make sure you're in the right groove, but I think you'll probably get it. Alright, waiting for Holy Night off to come back and to go on. Start with that one. Start with this one, and then work your way up to that one. Yeah. That's Hodiah on the percussion. Woo! Is this album going? This is his first, but not last gig for sure. Comes from a long line of musicians. So this song will be revisited later with slightly different lyrics, but we're going to go traditional for now. It's part of the magic trick. Israel was in Egypt's land. Let my people go, everybody say go down. Send Moses to way down. And each other land, tell them, it's a Pharaoh. I said, let my people go. That might be the answer, right? Moses said, let my people go. And that's my your firstborn dead. Let my people go. Everybody say go down to Moses. So way down in the land, tell them it's a Pharaoh. Y'all say, let my people go. So now a little dance solo from my brother. I'm gonna dance while he tells stories. It's just gonna work out great. Shall they in bondage towards it? Let my people go. Oh, let them come with Egypt's spoil. Let my people go. Everybody say go down to Moses. So way down in Jabalan, Jalol, Pharaoh. I said, let my people go. Okay, let me one more for the Metronis. Straight off the border. No more shall they enslave me. You say, let my people go. Oh, let all the earth be free. Let my people go. Everybody say, go down to Moses.
very much to the farewell to the Beit Midrash evening. It's wonderful to see this very eclectic, diverse, worldwide group of superheroes gathered here in what has been my living room and the shul for a number of years. And I have this distinct realization today, which is now I'm going to have to live someplace that's not a shul for the first time in about 6 years, because I previously here I lived in Chabad, courtesy of Rabbi Welton, and previous to that I lived in the earlier version of the Beit Midrash. But one thing that, I was thinking back about the history of the Beit Midrash and people who come here and their response. And the response is universally the same, which is, this is a very interesting community. And that response can be read in many different ways. For some people it's like, wow, you guys are so warm and loving. For other people it's like, how do you gather this collection of freaks into one building each week, Shabbos after Shabbos? I remember, first of all, I want to give compliments to Nathaniel and Taya. And, without them, this evening wouldn't have happened, because Nathaniel was the one who encouraged Saul and me to put this evening on. And so I really want to give some compliments to them.
It was really Nathan.
Where is that guy?
He's probably packing, and he's going to come, though. He's coming.
Okay, alright.
Do you have a video on the camera or some way to video this?
Or audio.
So, yeah, let's record this.
I don't fly until October, but we're leaving on Wednesday morning.
Well, I'll tell you a little story about Nathaniel, and sort of, which to some extent encapsulates how interesting a community this is. For those of you who are regular members of the Beit Midrash Minyan, like Moshe Matrani and Jerry, and that's it. And one of the frequent activities that happens during the Shabbos service here is the weekly "Let's Go Find a 10th Man" experience. For years we could count on Lev Jasper. Sometimes Lev gets busy, he's got a lot of kids, and on one particular occasion I remember Nathaniel and I went out to go find somebody at Monterey Market on a Shabbos day. We needed one more person. Now Nathaniel, for those of you who don't know him, is a very tall black man with long, long dreadlocks. Very loving, very friendly. But you can imagine if you're just sort of shopping for your fruit on a Saturday morning at Monterey Market, and these two people with kippots and tzitzit, and one's got dreadlocks, are walking towards you with a big smile. People are sort of dieting behind the heirloom tomatoes and the organic plums to get out of the way. And we found this wonderful man who had never even heard of the Beit Midrash, let alone ever had an aliyah, and he turned out to be Jewish. And he came back here. Thank God. And he came back here, and
Here he is.
and here he is. Yeah. Hey, Daniel.
You got to start over so we can hear the story.
I won't start over, but Nathaniel, I'm giving you some kavod. First of all, for inspiring us to put on this evening. And I was telling a brief story about how you and I went to Makar of a 10th man from Monterey Market once. And the funniest thing about this guy is that he came back here and he had his bar mitzvah. He got an aliyah. And that is not an untypical experience at the Beit Midrash. Somebody comes through here, they've never really had any connection to Yiddishkeit. Next thing they know, they're reading from the Torah, and there's a bunch of people who look like me and Rabbi Welton dancing around them, singing songs for 20 minutes in the middle of their Saturday morning shopping experience. It's no joke that probably the most consistent food that we serve at the Beit Midrash Kiddush is nuts. Nut spread, nut butter, this kind of nut, a few other nuts, whatever kind of nuts you would like. When people come and visit, say, from the East Coast, and we say, oh, you must join us for our raw Kiddush. They're usually expecting something warm, something hot. But there's been many, many interesting experiences I've had here. You know, and of course, Tamara and Noah have been pivotal in this experience, as were.
Pitiable?
Pivotal.
You did say it.
Did I say pitiable? Maybe. Oh well. As were the Felds. And I was thinking about my first experience with the Felds, and particularly the Feld children. And of course, you know, there are 3 Feld children, Daniel, Rochel, and David. And I had a moment with each of them that really sort of like, you know, these were just, you know, not your typical kids. The first was, when I moved to Berkeley, I was 32. And I remember going for a walk with Rochel for the first time. She was 11. And we were walking along, and I'm asking her things like, you know, so what's your favorite class, and what's the name of your school? And she stops and turns to me and says, you know, Michael, we haven't had much time to speak. I'd like to get to know you a little better. Tell me about yourself. And I thought, wow, this is not just your typical 11-year-old. And then I went out to Sophia's Cafe. For those of you who might remember, was kosher briefly for a time on Solano. And I went out with Daniel. We went for lunch. And I said to him, at that time, you know, I said, you know, Daniel, I have to say, it feels a little bit odd. I'm a 32-year-old man hanging out with a 14-year-old boy. And he said, how do you think it feels for me? I'm a 14-year-old boy hanging out with a 32-year-old man. But the best thing was, you know, around David, who at least externally seems to be the firmest of them all. I've always wanted to maintain a little more of an image of frumkeit around him. And, you know, so in my attempt, I went to the mikveh. I knew he was going to be there. I'm at a mikveh before Shabbos. I'm really Hasidish. And just before I get to the mikveh, he looks at me and he says, nice tan lines. Which was this clear indication that I swam in a Speedo during the week. But anyway, I'm going to tell you just a couple of other things about some of the interesting people here. One of whom, of course, as you all know and love, is Reb Herschel Yolis, the Sambor Rebbe. Now, it's not every day that you get to be housemates with a Hasidic Rebbe, or, you know, spend the night at the same place with a tzaddik. But I had the occasion, on many occasions, to do this. And after a while, I got to feel, you know, a certain comfort level with Reb Yolis. And so, you know, there were questions I'd always wanted to know, you know, what does a Rebbe do when you're not around? What does a Rebbe really think about? Is he always just giving drashot? What goes on in the mind of a tzaddik? So one night I was pushing him back from Shavuos to the JCC, and I said, Rebbe Yolis? He said, yes? I say, Rebbe Yolis, can I ask you a question? Of course, he been asking me a question. What is the question? Rebbe Yolis, do you ever wish you could wear jeans? And he said, no, not jeans. No, I like my clothes. So, and then another time, I was here. These are tzaddik jokes. They're very gentle. And I said to him, I was about to go to sleep. It was midnight. You know, we'd been up all night eating sardines and various people coming in and out of the big midrash and him falling asleep and then looking up and saying, I need a daven mincha. So anyway, I was about to go to sleep and I said, Rebbe Yolis, I've always wanted to know something. After I go to sleep, do you stay up all night and do Kabbalistic incantations? And he said, Kabbalistic incantations? No incantations. So I went to sleep and closed the door, and about 10 minutes after I've laid my head on the pillow, I hear a knock on the door. No incantations. I'm not quite sure what that meant, although around 3 in the morning I did happen to get up and I heard some talk radio in his room. So. Anyway, I want to turn it back over to my brother. Is this a good time to turn it over? Maybe not. Is it? Yeah, I'll turn it back to Saul, and I'll come back with some more stories in a little bit.
That's my bro. I too had a really sweet experience wheeling Rebbe Yolis from Shavua back and staying up all night with him. And I also was initiated into the world of sardines through Rebbe Yolis. Now I know it's not Shabbos, but maybe we can sing one of his niguns, one of his favorite songs that I actually, for me, I don't feel that Shabbat is complete for me personally any week unless I sing this, much to my wife's disappointment sometimes. But it's just one of my favorites, and you probably have heard it. It goes like this. Oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos Kodesh. Oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos Kodesh. Oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos Kodesh. Oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos Kodesh. Oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos Kodesh. Oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos Kodesh. Oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos Kodesh. Oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Shabbos, oy 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 Holy Shabbat. That's true, that's how we end it. It's true. No one believes me. That's how we end it. When I first introduced my Kala to Rebbe Yolis, it was during the 9 days before we were even engaged. And I was just very excited. It's like, this is Rebbe Yolis. And, me and Rebbe Yolis. And, we sat down together. And he turns to me and he says, So, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? I said, we're hanging out. It's like, hanging out? He says, you can get engaged during the 9 days. he says, but you can't eat meat at the celebration. But you can get engaged. So, Baruch Hashem, we got engaged about a year later. And it worked out. So, I want to sing a song that has a nigun in it. I'm a big fan of niguns. And, they say, I think it was the Alter Rebbe, he said at the Bar Mitzvah, the Tzemach Tzedek, he said that a nigun, when you're repeating the Torah of a tzaddik or a Talmid Chacham, that you're raising the holy sparks in the lower three levels of your soul, the nefesh, ruach, and neshama. And when you're singing nigun, you're actually raising holy sparks in the chai and the yechida. And I like to think of nigunim as vehicles. They're vehicles to take your prayers and your thoughts and your emotions where they need to go. So I want everyone to close your eyes for 1 second, even if you're videotaping. Close your eyes, just hold your hand still. And I want you to imagine one thing that you would like to change in the world. It could be in your life or someone else's life. One thing, and I want you to imagine that change has already happened. And I want you to feel into that. And when we get to the nigun part of the song, I want you to really concentrate on that feeling of what it feels like to have that change actualized. my food for free. Now I'm down on my knees, singing ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 my daughter, you coming tonight? We're feeding a poor man. Tell me, what's the sense in that? And whereas justice gone, I need a Korea. Sing with me. Sing it, yeah, da, 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 da. So I left my home and my land. My uncle's prayers I failed. But at least I got this beautiful wife. Just don't turn around and we're free. Hey, I need a Korea. Singing ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 singing ya da da. Close your eyes and sing one more time. Singing ya. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege and honor. Well, first of all, I want to say I hope that everything that you were just meditating on really does manifest.
Amen.
And without further ado, Michael Ben David. SRO, ladies and gentlemen, it's sitting room only. Come on, and there's some extra pillows we brought.
That was beautiful, Saul. That was just a very beautiful, special vision and musical experience. It was really lovely. You know, as many of you know, I do storytelling, and oftentimes my stories are imbued with a lot of humor, because people like to laugh. They want to laugh. But it's also, I feel equally valuable to sometimes think about some of the sweet things and the bittersweet things in life. And see you soon, Rabbi. Oh, come on back, Rabbi. Welcome back. Welcome back. Your dreams haven't changed since you've hung around. Anyway, that's Welcome Back Hot, our theme song just for now filming. Yeah, sweat hugs. Fell on a whole shack.
What shack?
One MC. Boom Boom walked in. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I know. Look, it's Hodaya, a real star of the show. Beautiful.
When did he grow?
Somewhere over the last 2 years.
So I wanted to just tell a few things about our departed and beloved teacher and tzaddik Hanan Feld, Zichrono Livracha, who I remember the first time I saw him at Chabad, actually. And he was the one with the longest beard. And he looked like a member of ZZ Top, but from. And I thought, this guy's got to be really intense. And I saw him with a bit of awe, and I kind of kept my distance. Until one day somebody, Rachel Israel, or now Rosenfeld, said, you should go over to the Felds for dinner. They're your kind of people. I went over and I walked in, and there was this guy. He just looked at me and I thought, oh God. And he turned out to be one of the friendliest, warmest people that I've ever met. And one of the most caring and responsive people. He helped me through many, many complex and difficult shilas, as did Red Welton. Can I eat dairy equipment chocolate after I've had a burger? Things that can really, weigh on a person's soul. And I remember, everybody talks about how much Hanan was very loving and sweet and open to everyone. But he also had this other side to himself, which was part of the love, but it involved things like, I once asked him, Hanan, do you think about Gehenna? And he said, I imagine a flaming fire in front of me at all times. And I was like, really? He's like, all the time. And one of the things that they say, it takes you 40 years to realize what your rabbi's teaching you. And it's taken me a few years to realize that maybe he was joking. He was very fond of saying, and I asked him about like Gehenna and things like that, and he would say, panic now, avoid the rush later. So that was his way of trying to keep me on the upper road. But one of the things, as I mentioned, he had a very, very long beard. So he was really into the power of beards. And he was very, very concerned about making sure that I grew my beard. And so I used to grow my beard, and then I'd shave it, and then I'd grow it. And I remember one time, it was about to be Slichas, and it was the week before Rosh Hashanah, and I had just shaved, and I walked in, and Hanan looked at me like this, which is not a look you want to get from Hanan. But anyway, I had a shiloh for him, which is, I tend to hold by a lot of Chabad minhagim. And one of the Chabad minhagim is you don't have to do that whole week of slichos between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So, I shaved for Rosh Hashanah, and so I said, I was standing there with my nice shining face. I said, so Hanan, do I have to say, I hold by Chabad minhagim, do I have to say slichas between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? And he looked at me and he said, you do. So, but he had a very sweet and loving way of doing things. And, I had this, I was saying earlier, I had this interesting relationship with Daniel Feld, who was 14, I was 32, we were best friends. And I think it's far more of a compliment to him than the other way around, but so we would do things, and he was a 14-year-old boy, and we would get into trouble. We would stay out way too long. We'd go on road trips without really telling his parents, because I could drive. I was 32. I didn't have to tell my parents. We could just leave town. And or rent movies from Elephant Pharmacy and not return them for 6 months until a very large bill arrived at the Feld residence. And I distinctly remember once coming back from a road trip with Daniel, and we came up from Fresno. We came up on the Amtrak train, and eventually got to Richmond and took the Barnet to North Berkeley. And his dad Hanan picked us up. And I could tell that something was not right. Daniel was definitely in trouble. He was not supposed to have got out of town, I think. And of course, me being the accomplice, I also sat in the back seat, 32 years old, feeling like I was on my way home to get grounded. But he was gentle with me, and I think I probably said some sleepless, and I was sent on my merry way. But there is one story that I actually have never told anyone. It's a very short story that happened with Hanan and me. It was really a moment, and I don't even know if Hanan was aware of the moment. It was when he was sick, but not. He was still coming to shul, and I can't remember exactly what happened, but I was holding some kind of grudge towards him. I don't know, maybe he got ticked off at me one day, or I don't remember what it was. And I was sitting there outside, and I was just thinking, God, I had this whole thing in my head. Hanan, sort of way we get into our resentments. Like, I'm gonna win this argument in my head, and I'll feel victorious. And Hanan, just as I was having that thought, walked around the corner and looked at me. And it was this deep, penetrating look that sort of let me know time is precious. Time is precious. These moments that we have with each other are precious. And it's something that, I really, really came full circle to yesterday at the midrash on our final Shabbos, which was recognizing that life is fleeting. And the hurts and the resentments that we hold on to really should not get in the way of the love that we actually feel for each other and the care that we have for each other. I was in South Africa earlier this year, and I think it's in the same parsha, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, where we're told not to hold a grudge against our fellow man and to rebuke him. I don't know if it's the same parsha, but I think it was. And I asked the rabbi, how does that work? Don't hold a grudge, but make sure you rebuke your fellow man. And what was explained to me was that the rebuking is actually expressing your feelings to this person so that you can let go of the grudge, so that you can move forward. To say, I've been holding on to this thing or what have you, and then you let it go, and then you can experience, the love for your fellow man, and you feel more shalom, and they feel more shalom. So I don't want to get too heavy, because I know this is supposed to be an uplifting evening, but I did want to bring in some of the sweetness and some of the depth that has also been a part of the experience here. And it's so beautiful to see how I can't tell you, because I remember so many times sitting next to Nathaniel in shul for years, talking about being single, and now he's a father and a husband, and it's just beautiful, and I'm just so happy. So I wanted to invite my brother back up here. We're going to sing a few more songs, special songs for you guys. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Saul Kaye.
Very good. Okay, this is good because I had a resentment I want to. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Just one time.
Sorry, stage crew, can we have this backlight for a second? We have a couple of lyrics we have to read for this next thing. I'd like to thank our AV crew for that. Well, in the Kaye family, we have a tradition. Maybe every family does this. I don't know. But we have the tradition of just making up silly songs at, family reunions and events and such. And so, in Kaye tradition, we did a couple for you. And tomorrow, I know. But
It's easier to listen.
yeah, see, there's less to, Okay, so you have to help me out on this one. I know you holy singers can hold a tune, they can hold a groove. And this one goes like this. That's me remembering it right there. The Noach came to Berkeley land. And we say, let my Noach go. He cracked his Chinese medicine. Let my Noach go. Everybody say, go up, Noach. Way up to Holy Land. Tell old Berkeley, let my Noach go. He and Tamar were hand in hand. Let my Noach go. Come on, people, help me out. She made the finest macrobiologics in all the land. And let my Noach go. Everybody say go up to Noach. Way up to the Holy Land. Tell old Berkeley, let my Noach go. They started the holy bait midrash. Let my Noach go. Where you can get the healthiest notch. Let my Noach go. Everybody say go up, Noach. Way up to the holy land. Tell old Berkeley, let my Noach go. Then came the holy reviolas. Let my Noach go. Teaching us about sardines and bliss. Let my Noach go. Everybody say go up, Noach. Way up to the holy land. Tell old Berkeley, let my Noach go. And don't forget tomorrow. All right.
Original song.
Kaye Brothers original. Now this next one is definitely a Kaye Brothers original. It's hot off the blast. Sort of goes back to your TV show thing. Let's see. All right, here we go. You may have seen this show if you were alive in the 70s or watched reruns in the 80s, or even in the 90s, really late at night. It was like this. Beans don't burn on the kitchen, beans don't burn on the grill. Took a whole lot of moving today just to get up that hill. Now you go up in the big leagues, riding on LL. You won't get no trade meal, but you will get a friend named Tyler. Moving on up to the Holy Land, to a deluxe apartment in the sand. Moving on up to the Holy Land. You'll find it leaving Birdman. Now we have a little special something that we cooked up for you. Don't worry, you don't have to eat it. It just shows our love and gratitude for you. For all the wonderful ways you have held space for us. It's a tough one to rhyme with. We hope to come visit you in the Holy Land soon by us. Because the transport of the midrash doesn't take that long to get on to Jerusalem. Well, moving on up to the Holy Land, to a deluxe apartment in the sand. Moving on up to the Holy Land. You're finally leaving Berkeley, man, all time. Beans don't burn on the kitchen, beans don't burn on the grill. Took a the second thing he said was, Hot Mama Love. The original Hot Mama Love. Lisa. Cool.
I got a little something for you.
Wow.
Well, it's not really quite this big, but you know, we just really had to get a little something for you as a small token of our appreciation for, well, there's no even way to really define it all. The tremendous, tremendous outpouring of love and generosity and open-heartedness and hospitality and care and concern and thoughtfulness and Torah and friendship. And I could go on and on and on, but I'll stop here. And so we got a little something for you, just a little something symbolic and also something symbolic from me. So first, a little something from the community. And if the community, if you haven't had a chance to express your own personal wishes, you still can. Don't worry. So there's just a little something here. There's a little card. And there's a little memory. Wow. That's just the one I wanted. I know. Because I was with you there once and I said, which one do you like? Oh, you remember. It's just this one card. And there's a little, you're so welcome. And in the card, there's a little surprise. On the back of the card, a little surprise. And everybody, please sign the card.
Cody.
And some of you know that I have a particular relationship with a particular corporate sponsor. Oh, goody. And I just had to share the wealth with people who love this particular company so much. You want to help me? Help me push the box. Help me push the box over to them. Ready? You guys ready? Or you might want to sit in a chair. I'm serious. And Noah, you might want to be the prince at this moment. And your wife's shoe. Yeah.
You mean my key?
Yeah.
What's the phrase about the knob? Something
Oh.
when she spits on the ground.
Well, that's the husband. You guys are together. It's supposed to be this way. Wow.
Ooh.
This is our local key ambassador.
Wow. Look at that.
Oh my.
Oh. Matches your shirt too, Tamar.
Style. Zion style it is now.
They have design. They have a shoe called.
I think it's too small though. No, it's not too small. Cinderella.
Because it was free. It's not too small.
Actually, it's perfect. It's perfect.
It's the slipper fits.
Her man, close your eyes. Her man has to match. Her man has to match. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Moving on up. These blocks of bombing and it's yeah.
So it's just really, it's a token. You should say come shalom, and you should only return to visit for shalom. But just know that our love goes with you. And
thank you.
And again, everybody, please sign the card. This is very expensive. These are very expensive too. Are you really? This is cool. He's awesome. So I'm going to pass the card around so you can sign it before tomorrow and I'll read it. How does that sound? And then tomorrow.
Farewell address? Come on.
Oh, these are also for you.
Cody.
Also for you. Oh my goodness. That's perfectly what you're wearing.
Let me change out of this.
Oh, yeah.
everybody's here, I do want to ask you guys to participate in a mitzvah in whatever way that you can. As many of you know, our spiritual mentor throughout all these years and still today is Reb Herschel Yolis in Borough Park, Brooklyn, who is a rather elderly man, but an extremely special and very important person who could really use our help. And I mean that financially. He's struggling financially, and he's done a lot for this community. So there are some envelopes here, and I'm not going to collect these from you, but they are here. I'll pass them around if you want to take it. If you need the address, I'm sure if we run out of envelopes, you can ask Tamar and Noah. They're here the rest of this week. To start things off, I'm gonna give $50 to Reb Yolis, and just sort of a token of my appreciation for him. And
I'll give 18.
So I'll give 8. We're at 68. So, we should get the Simchas Torah. We've got both of the guys in the back, It's a segula. You
Right here, 69.
69. So I'm going to pass this around. And, Rosh Hashanah is coming up, Day of Judgment, Yom Kippur. This is the month of Elul.
No guilt.
There may be some good things, tefillah and tzedakah avert the severity of the decree.
The pillar of fire.
Yeah, you don't want to see the pillar of fire. Avoid the rush later and panic now. So I'm going to pass this around. And want to just thank everybody for coming out tonight. We're going to be wrapping things up here briefly. And Saul's got a song he's going to sing. And are people just settling in or are people getting up? I can't even tell.
Yeah, we're settling in.
Settling in. Okay, so, then I'll tell one more story. One more story. It's not...
Wait.
Is it okay, camera?
There's a hachaim here.
Please do some lahaims. So yes, there's some beer, there's something else. Yes.
Are we just putting cash in an envelope?
Well, you can, whatever you would like to do. You can cash in the envelope, you can put checks in there. If somebody wants to collect them, great. I'm happy to convert that into a check and send it off. Thank you. So, Chaim. Yeah, all be blessed with long life. So I'm going to tell you a story that doesn't necessarily have so much to do with the Beit Midrash specifically, but it just happened to happen to me. Specifically. And since I live in the Beit Midrash, I figured this counts. So I knew let's put it this way. I had a vague idea that we might be moving out today. I thought maybe we would get a big donor this last week. Maybe there'd be a knock on Tamar's door.
It could still happen.
The night is young. I'll be here all night. Really, I will. And so, in any case, last weekend, a group of us, some of us from the Beit Midrash, Ellie Green, myself, Satya, a few other people, Ramona Rubin, decided to go up to the Yuba River to go camping for Shabbos. And I thought to myself, this is really what I need. Just a chance to just rest and restore myself and just be quiet. Nothing heavy, just a simple Shabbos in the woods, just to relax before the big transition that's we're now in the midst of right now. So I drove up there with Satya and got there Erev Shabbos and met Sticky and Ramona and Julie Seltzer and quickly set up Shabbos camp in the campsite. And very quickly Shabbos was upon us. Now, as I mentioned, I had gone there to have a restorative Shabbos, a peaceful, quiet time in the woods. It took us about 4 hours to get there. And what we didn't realize was that the people who were staying in the campsite next to us were about 22 years old. There was about 15 of them. They were from the inner city, and they had come there to have a birthday party with their subwoofers and their amps and their gangster rap and kegs and bottles of alcohol, and it was loud. I mean, this is like you've driven all the way into Yosemite and suddenly you're at a rock concert. And you can't do anything about it. Why? Because it's Shabbos. You can't ask them to turn things down. You can't ask them to move, and you can't move either. And the interesting thing is, it also happens to be Rosh Chodesh, which means there's no moonlight, because there's no moon. So, the only thing that we had lighting up our area were some Shabbos candles that we lit on the table before Shabbos, so that we could see our food. But within a few minutes into the dinner, one of the group was having some drinks. One of us were making lahaims, and the liquor spilled over the candles. So now it's totally in the dark. We can't see what food it is we're taking. There's all sorts of, going on like 15 feet away, and these tall pines, and it's very dark. So we made it through the meal, and we thought maybe we'll try to stumble in the dark back to our tents. We didn't have much light, and because we had to set up at the last minute, we got not the best campsite. It was a slope, so all of our tents were on a very sharp incline. So as soon as you got in your tent, you sort of rolled down to the edge of the tent and just kind of hung there, happening in the next campsite. And, to say the least, it was very hard to fall asleep. We tried, I davened, I tried to forgive, I tried to let go, I tried to let God, I tried to be present, I tried to, all these things, it's Elul, this is a kapara. Finally around 2:30 in the morning, maybe 3, I just gave up, but I got up, and I realized everybody else was up too. So whenever I was I was talking with Rumbona, and she's like, "So what's been happening with you recently?" I was like, "Well, actually, I just was in New York last week for a simcha, for a wedding." So New York is a wonderful place. They've got the great thing about New York, as many of you know, they've got fantastic kosher restaurants, and so many different types. It's not just one place where it's a deli. There are actual restaurants where you sit down, and there's waiters and maitre d's, and it was Mochi Shabbat, and my dad decided, let's go out for dinner. And so I told Ramona, she's like, where do you go? I said, well, went to this wonderful tapas place. It's called Ladino, and they served South American cuisine. It was and I'd never had tapas food before. But it was amazing. She said, really? They have that there? And I was like, yeah, it was under the OU. She's like, under the OU? And I was like, yeah, it was under the OU. All the waiters had ties that had the OU on it. And she said, did they wear anything else? I said, yeah, they wore other things. They wore other things. And she said, you went there with your dad? I was like, I went there with my dad. She's like, that's amazing. And I said, well, yeah, they had like music there, and they had food being made. And she said, were there people who were there? Were they wearing their kippot? And I was like, yeah, people were wearing their kippot. It was like a front place. She's like, and were there women there? And I said, yeah, there were women there. She said, working there? I said, no, mainly in the kitchen. She said, so it was mainly the men who were out there? Just, and I was like, yeah, you were there with your dad? I said, yeah. She's like, God, Sticky never told me there was a topless kosher restaurant on the Upper West Side. I can't believe this. Under the OU. And you went there with your dad. So, needless to say, we were laughing hilariously because I suddenly realized why she wanted to know if the waiters were wearing anything more than ties. And why other people were wearing their kippot there. And just as we were finding ourselves cracking up, a fight broke out in the campsite next to us. I don't mean like, hey man, you took my tent. I mean a fight, like violent, people beating each other, men beating each other, women beating each other. It was like a grand royale in the middle of the forest. Like, welcome to nature. You know? Chodesh Tov, my friend. Chodesh Tov. And, you know, and we're sitting there, you know, sort of doing our little Jewish thing, you know, like, Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya, soon by you, soon by you. And as this is happening, and we're sort of standing there in awe, we hear thunder, and we see lightning in the distance. And I'm not kidding you. And I said, Ramona, there's going to be a thunderstorm. I said, oh, no, it's August in California. It's a dry electric thunderstorm. They happen all the time. That's why you see a lot of forest fires. It doesn't rain in California in August. I mean, especially August up here, you know. So I said, okay, fine. So we're sort of sitting there and trying to figure out, do we do something about the fight next door or whatever? Meanwhile, Julie Selcher suddenly yells to us, put a cover on your tent. It's going to rain. And Ramona says, it's not going to rain. It's not going to rain. It's not going to rain. I think it's raining. So the next thing you know, it's thundering, it's lightning, and it's not just raining, it's pouring. It's pouring, and because nobody was able to get their fly thing over the tent, everybody crammed into my tent. A tent for one person with 5 people on Rosh Chodesh Elul. We're trying to be as sneeze as we can. There's people battling each other 15 feet away in the campground. We can't call the police because there's no cell phone reception. We're in the middle of the forest. This is Wonderland. This is nourishment. Or maybe this is Nourishkeit. So anyway, we sort of, you know, we just sang songs and eventually they went to sleep. And the next day we davened. It was a beautiful Hallel. We had a beautiful Shabbos. And come out of Shabbos, the second day of Rosh Chodesh, and now I'm feeling, you know what? That was last month. This is the new month. This is the second day. This is really Rosh Chodesh Elul. So we went out and we lay on the ground and we looked up at the stars. Beautiful. And the campground next to us was quiet. You know, some sort of peace had overtaken them. And
Some type of medicine.
yes, some sort of Doc Green's wonderment had sort of, you know, calmed the inflammation down. And you know, Satya had gotten in touch with her hippie roots and was beginning to quote Peter, Paul, and Mary. So we eventually fell asleep, and in the morning I wake up and it's time to pack. I have to get back to Berkeley. I have to pack. We're going to be moving in a week. I had things to do. And I couldn't find my keys. So I went looking around for my car keys, and I have this thing with keys, this nachlas. The week before I left them in New York, and somebody had FedExed them out here. So I couldn't find my keys, and I went walking around, and eventually I saw them lying on the ground where we had laid the night before to watch the stars. And they had been run over. Now, normally with the key, that's not such a big deal, but I happen to have a BMW, and it turns out that inside a BMW key is a little crystal that tells the car, this is your key, and it can start. So I was able to open the car, pack it all up, thinking everything was fine, and just as I was about to leave, I turned it, only to discover it didn't work. It wouldn't start. Now, you might remember we have no cell phone reception up there, and so I wasn't sure what we were going to do. Here I was in the middle of the forest. I have no cell phone reception. My car doesn't work. I need to get back to Berkeley. So we managed to flag down the Bureau of Land Management emergency vehicle. This is an interesting guy named Brian. He used to work up in Oregon. He'd been involved in busting marijuana cartels in the forest. He had all sorts of amazing stories. He drove me about 10 miles outside of the campground, where I finally got cell phone reception and was able to call AAA, who sent in a special emergency vehicle that could traverse these mountainous roads. 9 hours later, I managed to get back to Berkeley. Of course, I'd have to leave my car in Sacramento because my AAA coverage only gave me 100 miles of towing. So I had to rent a car in Sacramento from the airport, not from a rental car agency, because it was Sunday, and the only rental car agencies open on Sunday are at the airport. So I had to take a taxi cab with an Indian man who proceeded to tell us a long story about how he had lost all of his money and hated America, and had been stuck here for 20 years, and he didn't know how he was going to get out. That taxi ride cost me $65 and a lot of inner serenity. I got to the car rental agency, and I told the car rental person, what I'd been through. And he took both his hands, he put them across the desk and shook my hand. He said, "I'm not just saying this because I'm renting you a car. I'm really sorry for you. I am really sorry for you." I thought, somehow that wasn't as comforting as I'd hoped it to be. So, in any case, I drove the rental car back to Berkeley. And the next day, I called AAA to have them tow my car the rest of the way from Sacramento. But it turns out, if you want your car towed by Sacramento, you have to be present at the car to show them your ID. So I had to drive all the way back to Sacramento BMW, show him my ID for about 3 minutes before he would take it. Which was just a long enough time for him to say, "What happened to your front bumper?" I said, "What do you mean what happened to my front bumper?" He said, "Didn't the guy who towed you yesterday just put the little clip back on the front bumper where, he put the tow hook?" I said, "No." He said, "God, I always tell those guys, they gotta remember to put that clip back on the front bumper or it's gonna get lost." So, if you look at the front of my car, you'll see a clear hole right through the front of the bumper. I don't know where that piece of plastic is. Perhaps it's in Shemaim. But eventually I got my car back, I got my keys back, and now I'm back here just in time to say farewell and goodnight to the Beit Midrash. And I want to thank you all for coming out here tonight and supporting the Beit Midrash, really, and yourselves, because you are the Beit Midrash. And I want to invite my brother Saul for one last song before we call it a night. Saul?
I might be a blues singer, but he's really got the blues.
Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I'll say it.
Okay. We have a short announcements. Ross.
As I'm moving on up.
Okay. First,
All I knew is you had a cold.
So, I think first I want to say Teichem Shalom to Kaye, Rivka, and Nathaniel, Hodaya, who are really moving on up to Yerushalayim, leaving in 14 days, 13 days, 12 days, something like that. Unbelievable. Movers are coming Wednesday. Wow. The latest, greatest Beit Midrash cannon shots of the Holy Land. Proud of you guys. And those who were here on Shabbat got to see Yafa Dagan, whose sister made the Parochet Malka, and she made the cover of the Shulchan. So Yafa is going back. Took years of pressure for Yafa, years of constant pressure. She also moved away from Berkeley. She moved to San Jose, and that was her stop. So like you guys moved out a little bit, and then off you go. You have to get out of the grip.
Now the grip is gone.
And I want to thank the Kaye brothers for the beautiful grand finale of the Beit Midrash. And I can't remember if it's you were telling a story, Michael, or you were singing one of the great songs, or you both were singing. But I had this image come to me of maybe my favorite story as a little kid. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. It's called The Red Balloon. Remember that story, The Red Balloon, right? There's this red balloon. It's a very special balloon, and this kid has an attachment to it. And I think maybe I was in first grade, and I was stuck in Texas in first grade. No, really, my parents went to Mexico, and my mother, and they left us with my grandparents, and my mother got typhus, and she came back to be in the hospital in Mexico, in Texas, for a month, and the first grade started, so they put me in. And the teacher really liked me, and I think that she gave me that book as a going-away present after all the things. So anyway, I love that story, and somehow that came to me about the baby Josh. Like, you know, in the story, the bad kids get really jealous of that relationship of the red balloon with that kid that follows the kid to school and suspects the red balloon, and finally they break the balloon, right, with stones, and the kid is really sad, and the balloon, enenu, it's no more, right? But then all these balloons come from around the world. And they fly in from around the world, and they tie themselves together with the string that comes down. And he takes, is it a movie? Yeah, the book is made on the movie.
Yeah.
He takes a trip, I think, around the world, if I remember correctly. With all the balloons, they lift him around. You know, they take him around. And so, sort of a version of that for the baby Josh. This image came to me like, you know. Many of us worked non-stop today to pack up the baby Josh yet again, right? And it's gone. It's in storage. Most of it is in one storage unit, believe it or not. Like 14 years of blood, sweat, and tears, and emotion and transformation, and fit into one small storage unit. And there's a couple other things at a couple other places, but so the baby Josh is in transition, in transformation, in a cocoon, in dormancy, whatever it is. And my sense is that all of us will go out and we'll be lifted by those balloons. Each of us lifted to where we're going to go next in life. Infused with the love and the beauty and the Torah and the strength and the Kedusha of the baby Josh. Those are the balloons that come together, that are inside of us, and lift us up and carry us forth and give us fuel into the next phase and stage of our lives. And we'll find our way. We'll find our way somehow. I invite all of you to Israel.
Baby Josh, Yerushalayim.
Baby Josh, Yerushalayim, baby. I got my eye on a piece of real estate on the way down the steps to the Kotel. I've had my eye on that for a long time. It's just overgrown with weeds, And I talked to David Baywitz about it. He says there's some ruins on it. What kind of ruins? Roman ruins. Forget about it. We need the baby Josh, not the Roman ruins in Yerushalayim. So, you never know. You never know. Somebody might, raise the baby Josh flag in Israel. So, anyway, it's been a very sweet, powerful 14 years of transformation for people, and love, and marriages, and children, and growth, and song, and tefillah, and emunah. And I know for Tamar and me, it's filled our lives with deep, profound meaning, more than we even know. More than we know. And as Jane said yesterday, about us, we didn't sign on for this. We just like, okay, let's start something. Not like some grand, And it really has been so transformative for us as individuals, as a couple, and for the community, and for Berkeley and the Bay Area, and I think for the world. Baby Josh has been known out there. So. Anyway, thanks for the memories.
Thank you.
Thank you for the 14 beautiful years.
Is there like a raffle or anything? Auction? There's some stuff outside if anyone needs anything.
There's stuff outside. It's going
Well, I think this is a snapshot in history, and I hope that we all see each other many times again soon. And many simchas, many weddings, bris soaked. And I'm glad. It's Speaking of versing,
Thank you.
that was the first verse I ever played, so that was, yeah, I was a little nervous. So I thought I would play, since we're kind of in this mellow space, I thought I would play a mellow song. So this is one of the versions I have of the Shema, but I'm going to substitute a couple words just to make sure it's kosher here. So I was reminded of my brother's story about the rain. This song was actually kind of commissioned to write for a Jewish lullaby CD. There's an artist named Craig Talman, and he asked some artists from all over the world to contribute a piece. And he called me up and he said, "Saul, I listened to your albums, but I don't hear any lullabies." I said, "How much time do I have?" He said, "We got 5 days." So I went home that night and I just wrote something. And that's when I was living in El Sobrante, home of Nathaniel Kaya. And it was raining that night, and the cricket got into my studio, and he, of course, found his way into the recording as well. So you'll hear some references to him. Good night, sweet love, good night. Listen as the rain falls down. Crickets whisper the end of a long day. Shema Yisrael Hashem Eloheinu Hashem Echad. Does that work? Is that okay? All day long you dream of this moment when your head lays down to rest. Feel the pillow cradle your worries and fears. Shema future blessing. Finally, you close your eyes as your head lays down to rest. Here's my favorite lullaby. Good night. Michael Kaye Brothers presents.
Beans on burn.
I can
Okay, I have one more. So
Alright.
do you want to tell last show we did together was Kaye Stock. If you've ever heard the Kaye Stock story, you know it. If you haven't, ask him. It'll take about 2 to 3 hours to tell him. It's epic. So, as you know, that I do Jewish Blues Volume 3. I just had an idea, actually. I don't know how the donation for Rebbe Yolis is going, but I'd like to donate 5 CDs, and if anyone wants to kind of take a CD and put the $15 for that towards Rebbe Yolis, that would be great. I'll just leave them here, and you can just do it. It's great. Rebbe Yolis has had a really profound impact on my life. I mean, if any of you have spent any time more than 5 minutes with him, it's just being in the presence of a tzaddik is really, it's like that. It's just amazing. So I have some volumes of Jewish Blues, 1, 2, and 3, and I've written 4 and 5. Taking submissions for 7 through 10. If you have any ideas, let me know. But volume 3 was I decided to write Shacharit's greatest hits. So it's basically like my favorite excerpts from Shacharit's. So you might know this one. This is my version of Adonal. So I'm not going to substitute this one because I think I'm singing the entire pursuit, so it's okay? Yeah? Okay, great. It's weird. I used to play in bars and nightclubs and saloons, and now I'm playing and there's usually 2 to 8 rabbis at any of my shows. Times have changed, I tell you. Baruch Hashem. Moving on up. Some herbs for that, I don't allow, I share my heart. It's air cold, it's air nivra, late night smile, the air so cold, I find the land, Shimonika, the Akari, you know my home, if I told you love, no God. you in Holy Land.
Let me just
Give us a better
let me just
anything.
add a word of
Couldn't
Ken.
give it a better anything.
I have the privilege every Thursday morning after davening to study or to learn from one of the mainstays of the midrash, who's going to be very sad. It's Jesse Yellow Schwartz. And so when I said to him this Thursday, so what's going to be after Shabbat? And these are the two words he said to me. Two words. A new beginning. So those of us who are staying here, we have to accept that fact.
There's still this.
Your mission.
Belly's back. I got that.
Thanks, bud.
So do we have a certain envelope for raviolis?
Yeah.
So there, the back pain goes away. Today, when it comes out, I just, no, really, my head is killing me, and I said, I should have done this with me.
Yeah, man.
I've never tolerated this today.
What is that? That's your inspiration. Hey, man. Long time no see.
No problem. I met your brother yesterday. Hey, nice to see you again. Nice to see you again. You find Mosh? Yes. Pulling up at the house. And I was really worried because he makes plans. He talks about it over and over. Yeah, I know.